has the United States and France in shambles after kicking out both countries over the span of the last few months. After ousting the previous puppet of the West, we now have an anti-colonial government in Niger that has no tolerance for United States and French influence. This is a huge blow to the United States and the West because Niger has been a strategic military location used by France and the United States during their counterterrorism operation. In fact, the United States is now forced to close a $100 million drone facility that they just made in Niger last year. Just fantastic use of our taxpayer dollars, by the way. The West has been so concerned with Niger's new anti-colonial mindset that they sent Victoria Nuland there as an obvious threat. Victoria Nuland in the West, in their very smug and condescending way, wagged her finger at Nigerians and warned them about Russian and Iranian influence in their country. Nigerians were so offended by this statement by the Biden administration that they responded by kicking the United States military out. The ridiculous belief of the West that Africans have to be told by Russia, Iran, or China that United States influence in their country is bad is absurd. As if Niger needs a reason to dislike France and the United States. The fact that the United States and France have to blame Russia and Iran for Niger kicking them out of their country shows that the United States is facing a giant problem of legitimacy and declining influence on the global stage. Niger, in many states in Africa, is embracing China and Russia because while the United States bombs, Russia and China build. I want you guys to understand, I wasn't even scratching the surface. The hotspot videos, they asked me to keep it around 2 minutes or so, which makes sense because they're shorter videos. I love those shorter videos. I feel like it helped me become much sharper as a commentator. First, we do a lot of research, and I was reading a ton about what the hell is going on in Niger, and it's fascinating what's going on. The West is in complete shambles because Niger has kicked out France and the United States, which symbolizes a long time failing policy in Africa. Now, this is the first thing I will pose to neocons because they obviously believe the United States presence in Niger is good, just like they assume United States presence in Haiti is good. I have a question for you guys. What good has United States military intervention, United States military presence has done for Niger? You have the United States, which is the most powerful military force, the wealthiest nation in the world. But Niger is more unstable than ever after decades of U.S. military occupation in Niger, military coordination in Niger, U.S. bases in Niger. The United States is the biggest military in the world, leading AFRICOM, coordinates with ECOWAS, who's in shambles. Their goal, their stated goal on why they is in Niger, is for counterterrorism operations. That's one of those buzzwords, my friends. If you ever hear the words counterterrorism, you know you're dealing with bullshit. How can anyone justify the United States mission of quote unquote counterterrorism in Niger when terrorism is higher than ever in Niger? And this is even by the United States. And how long have you guys been there? But terrorism is still a big problem. Niger is still unstable. So what the hell are they doing? We need to start asking these questions. They've been on a counterterrorism mission for decades. Terrorism at an all-time high. Niger is as unstable than ever. What is the United States military doing there? Going to tell you guys. Because as I covered in the video, you had a $100 million drone facility that is being forced to close because of this new base Niger government. You guys see they use these scary words, Niger junta. The junta. You mean the legitimate government of Niger? Niger has been a Western puppet. They always been friendly of the West, just like many colonized Africans have been. African countries have been. Now they have an anti-colonial leader, anti-colonial ruling party that even declined bribes from Emmanuel Macron. We're gonna cover this very here soon. But how can anyone justify United States military presence there? They was there to have a strategic military location so they can control West Africa, get intel, and control the flow of uranium. So if you guys don't know, Niger is one of the most uranium-rich countries in the world. Around 15 to 30% of the EU's uranium, the uranium that comes from France, that comes from Germany, that comes from Niger. So Niger, a country that's relatively poor, you got to ask yourself this question: why is the United States and why is France so invested in Niger? The answer is obvious: uranium. And also, see, this is also a good comment. Thank you, Janice. Always leave great super chats. They also funding terrorists, sowing discord. They claim that they are there to fight terrorism. Do you guys know junta? Yeah, military junta. Do you guys know that if the Nigerian government requests help from the United States and they file a request for backup, for assistance on a counterterrorism mission, do you guys know the United States reserve the right to decline them, and they often do? In this military arrangement, the United States, in fact, there's no evidence of the United States engaging on the ground in Niger against terrorists. And that's it represents how much the Nigerian government was in bed with the West. The fact that Niger accepted these horrible deals that made no sense because African leaders had a long history of taking bribes. They take bribes from the West and they sell their people out. It's a tale as old as time. It's been one of the greatest tragedies of Africa. These African leaders that take bribes from countries like France, the United States, and they take pressure from the West because they just want to maintain their power and they can enrich them and their family and their cronies in the process. They like, sign me up. Countless interventions supported by the CIA, who the TYT supports, that installed vicious, violent leaders in Niger. So the United States have no interest in actually engaging in counterterrorism. They are there to subjugate Niger. So when this new government took hold in 2013 after their coup, you had France and Emmanuel Macron that offered bribes to the new ruling government. They even were trying to pressure, and this goes to this story right here, and it shows how they miscalculated. And it will just insult after insult because everyone talking about the United States leaving Niger, but we need to talk about why. Insult after insult. The Nigerian government declined the bribe from France. The second that Niger declined the bribe, that is when France supported the ECOWAS intervention into Niger. You guys understand? That is the timeline. They also, the United States, the number one concern that they have right now is controlling the uranium deposits in Niger. And now, ongoing theme of something that we've been covering on RBN, because I've been explaining to you guys how absolutely important the story of increased Russian and Chinese influence in Africa. Because as I mentioned my hotspot, Russia and China builds while the United States bombs, and they subjugate and turn these governments to essentially proxy states of the United States. They emasculate their leaders. So you had Victoria Nuland, and I covered this at the time. I guess I'll put this receipt up before I get to that one. I'm trying to decide what order I'm going to go to. You have Victoria Nuland that visited Niger out of nowhere without scheduling any meeting. And guys, I need you guys to understand, this is a common power move that the West would do to African leaders. They will expect African leaders to make time for them. They will be extremely inconvenient to African leaders. So they have an African summit that the Biden administration held, an African summit that was set in America. Someone explain to me how that makes sense. You guys have an Africa summit, but you guys don't hold it in Africa. You guys hold it in America. Why? That's a power move. You guys bring your ass over here. The new Nigerian government requested audience with the United States and France. No response. They demanded that they return the government to the Western control puppet. Then after they get no response, Victoria Nuland and the Biden administration rose up out of nowhere with no scheduled meeting. And guys, this is a power move. And this is something that African leaders talk about all the time. It's a lack of respect. Now we are diving into why Niger kicked out the United States. So this new government come in, the United States stroll in, then they can, hey guys, let's make a meeting. They're like, fuck you. Who the fuck do you think you are? Just strolling in here and just demanding that you can have a meeting with us. And now, if you guys think I'm being nitpicky, can you imagine if Victoria Nuland just show up to the UK, France, or any country that is deemed equal standing, any Western country, and they just have a spontaneous meeting, and then they start barking demands at their government, demanding that the Tories give power to labor, making demands. That was essentially what Victoria Nuland did. Look, I'll just read this passage here. On Monday, acting U.S. Deputy Secretary, and now she retired now, Victoria Nuland met with coup leaders, the legitimate government, and said they refused to allow her to meet with Bazoum. I will now say the former president leader's name, who she described under a virtual house arrest. She described the mutinous officers as unreceptive. They were the mutinous officers. You guys see the language they're using? They was unreceptive to her repeals and start negotiations to restore constitutional rule. So essentially, the arrogance of Victoria Nuland to come here, to go to Niger and like, hey guys, I know you guys think you're a legitimate government, but get the fuck out and reinstall our Western puppet, please. They're like, get the fuck out of here. Who are you? And now this is the second part of this. Probably one of the most important parts. So you have the general disrespect. You have the Biden administration that is outwardly delegitimizing the new government in Niger. You have France that is making demands on the government in Niger. And then once that Niger didn't buy into the demands, all of a sudden France is teaming up with ECOWAS to support an intervention. So remember all this. And now you have this part here. The United States that was essentially warning Niger and telling them to stop furthering their partnership with Russia and Iran. You even had the Biden administration that accused Niger of selling uranium to Iran, which the Nigerian government denies that they did that. But it was another accusation that was offensive that was thrown at Niger. You had Blinken, you had Biden. They're like, oh, look, see, this is why Niger government is so evil, because they're sending uranium to Iran and Russia. We demand you end your partnership with Iran and Russia. So once again, you had the Nigerian government. They're like, who the fuck do you guys think you are to tell us who we can have relationships with? And to be clear, guys, the new Nigerian government wasn't even that unreasonable. They was willing to work with the West. They was telling the West that you guys better respect our sovereignty. We're going to make our decisions, and we're going to work with you guys at our own pace. But we also going to work with Iran and Russia. So this is what caused it. U.S. warned Niger about ties to Russia, Iran, before the junta revoked the accord. And now this is the narrative that coming out from the West because they're in shambles, because Niger called their bluff and told them to shut the fuck up, and they just booed them, the military, from their country. So now Western media, corporate media, and Western officials, they're now blaming Russia and Iran for starting propaganda campaigns in Niger. So obviously, the quote unquote dumb black Africans, they can't think for themselves. This is the deeply ingrained racism that comes from the West. They assume that China is colonizing Africa, even though they're coming up with mutually agreed terms. Africans, they know what is best for them. But you want to know what's even more absurd with this accusation? It is very public and very well known that Niger has always had a relationship with Russia and Iran for decades, my friends. Decades. So why now? Why now? Why is the United States and West putting so much pressure right now? Even though Niger always had friendly relationships with Russia and Iran, even when Niger was strongly a Western puppet. Because back then, Russia and China influence in Africa is not what it is today, my friends. You have China and Russia that is rapidly expanding their influence in Africa. You even have Emmanuel Macron that accused Russia for stepping on its tail in Africa. Emmanuel Macron blames Russia for their failure to handle their colonies. So guys, this is a straight up political move by the United States because they have now chosen to escalate tensions with Russia, China, and Iran. So they are going to African countries and giving them an ultimatum. You either choose us or you choose them. And Niger told them to fuck off. We choose Russia and Iran. Fam, I can't even begin to stress how big of a deal this is. It shows how much of a fake wet tiger that the West is. They have no real international influence anymore. Russia and China completely won the propaganda war for good reason. Because Africa, as Hugh Anthony Ali explained, is going through an industrial boom. And this is because of China and Russia, who's, unlike the IMF, forgives debt in Africa, providing, I'll put this one up. I was trying to find another story, but I think this works. Especially from unhinged maniacs like Tucker Carlson, Tim Pool, all these anti-China derangement syndrome people. China cancels loans in Africa all the time. Let me see if I can find this other story. I didn't have this prepared, but yeah, Russia that was canceling loans. Cancel African loans. Cancel African debt. Let me see if I can find this receipt. Oh, Jesus Christ. I didn't even see this one. Putin promises grains, debt write-offs as Russia seek African allies. So, I can't stress enough. Africans know what's best for them. The West can't accept that, though. And now, another very interesting thing, because we're going to have Asar Rod join us very soon. I wanted to cover this because, as you guys see, this is a big thing that I'm focused on Nick and Night Season 2. Is covering these stories from Africa that I don't think being covered enough. The failure of Emmanuel Macron's administration in Niger cannot be overstated. Because after Emmanuel Macron tried to bribe Niger, tried to put pressure on them, threaten military intervention, they tried to whip ECOWAS up. And like, all right, let's have this ECOWAS, this Western-controlled military bloc in West Africa. Now, they're a military bloc in West Africa, but they largely take the direction of the United States. It's essentially an extension of AFRICOM in a lot of ways, where they engage in a lot of quote-unquote counterterrorism with the United States. And then when Emmanuel Macron said, hey, man, we might have this military intervention. We might have this military intervention in Niger. And then ECOWAS was like, what? Huh? The fuck you talking about? We don't got no problem with no Niger. Trying to see if look at this one. Look at this. West African bloc lift coup sanctions on Niger in a new push for dialogue to resolve tensions. This goes directly against the wishes of France and the United States. Once again, another middle finger. I just found that looking for something else, trying to look for something else. But I'll read just a little bit of this. ECOWAS West African trade bloc shaken as 3 member states withdraw and form their own alliance. I'll just read just a little bit of it. The withdrawals come as no surprise. Throughout West Africa, there is a growing frustration with ECOWAS over its struggle to ensure security in the region. Coups has become commonplace, and West Africa has seen a dramatic increase in terrorist activities over recent years. So what exactly is the point of ECOWAS? What exactly is the purpose of United States military presence in Africa if you guys can't even accomplish your stated objective of counterterrorism, which they absolutely do not do? What have we told you on RBN that not many other channels are telling you guys? They want to just assume the United States is going to win every war. The United States haven't won any wars in the modern human history. No one else is willing to talk about this other than RBN. They never accomplished their stated objective. Their stated objective during the war on terror was to eradicate terror. Terror is at an all-time high. Okay, once again, going by State Department lingo, just to make my point simple, right? Their goal is to eradicate terrorism in Africa. That's why they need never-ending occupation. And that's why countries and people in Africa lost faith in ECOWAS in the West, because despite their intervention, despite them controlling their resources, despite the political pressure, despite the fact that they turned their leaders corrupt because of bribes, they can't even do the one thing that will be a positive from all this negative bullshit, is at least security. If you're going to have the West dominate you politically, at least give us fucking security. They're not even doing that. There's not enough time, because this segment only going to be like 30 minutes. Not enough time to explain to you guys how much the West has fucked Africa, completely destroyed Africa. And now you have this new Pan-African movement, Hands Off Africa movement, that's spreading like wildfire. I mean, you can credit Gaddafi a lot for lighting the spark when he wanted to create African currency to decrease reliance from the West, which is why they got him killed. Now, this guy has been phenomenal. He's been just very principled anti-colonial leader. While you have African leaders taking bribes left and right, you have I don't even like his name is very hard for me to pronounce. Actually, let's see if I can get AI to pronounce it. It'd be good to learn something new. Let's see.
Pronouncenames.com.
Let's see how you pronounce it.
Abdurrahman.
Oh, come on. There's no way. Let me hear that again.
Abdurrahman.
Okay. Abdurrahman? Fuck.
Man. Abdurrahman.
Well, I'm trying, guys. But the reason why I want to get this guy's name right is because I'm putting respect on this motherfucker's name, because African leaders have sold out their people for so long. This guy declined a bribe for Emmanuel Macron. He would have got extra aid. While African leaders are taking bribes left and right, he declined the bribe for Emmanuel Macron. And then that is when France decided to do this ECOWAS intervention that is crumbling before our own eyes. So, as I explained, the international community in Africa lost faith in ECOWAS and United States intervention because they are not even able to decrease the amount of terrorism in the region. In fact, terrorism instability got worse. So accurately, the new Niger leader accused the French forces of trying to destabilize the country. Because what would this intervention, what would the ECOWAS intervention into Niger actually accomplish? Nothing but instability, nothing but chaos, which is the goal of the West. We have our guest Asal here. How you doing, Asal? I'm gonna introduce you here very soon. Let me see why I'm missing this. I just scratched, but bro, 30 minutes in, we just scratching the surface on this. Oh yeah, let me find the drone base. I didn't show you guys that receipt. I gotta speed this up just a little bit. Drone base in Niger was shut down. It was a $100 million drone base that they just built last year. It just finished last year, I should say. 100 million. I want to get a headline that shows how much it costs. Here it is. This is the drone base. This story was running in 2016. This drone base was just finished in 2013. $100 million drone base that they now no longer can use. Fuck, I'm gonna see if I can find the other one. But this is the drone base that they can't use. Pretty much, this is a big loss for the United States. I think that's about it. But one thing I want to remind you guys, as we got our guests in, because I'm gonna continue to update you guys on this. I'm gonna get us all in here. This is mostly about the rise of influence of Russia and China and Iran and Niger, a relationship that they have for a very long time. And now the Biden administration accused Niger of providing uranium to Iran, which the Nigerian government, they reject. They say it didn't happen. But that relationship has been a thing for a very long time. They're using that as a way to spark conflict, which is why the Nigerian government is accurately accusing France and the United States of destabilizing their government.